Good evening, Blood Bowl fans. Welcome back to another episode of Superfed TV Presents REL Divisions 1, 2, and 3. I'm your host, Superfed TV. Today I have no co-host. I'm actually doing the episode a day early. Got plans for tomorrow night, so on short notice I didn't get anybody. But we do still have plenty of good Blood Bowl action to cover for you today. Go ahead and pop on over. And we are going to begin with Division 3, as we usually do. This week was an interesting and exciting one. Hopping over to day 6. And we'll go through the results to start things off. Howl at the Moon played Please Don't Murder Me. And the High Elves proved triumphant against the Necromantic team. No deaths suffered on either side, but 24 armor breaks for the Necro team and 2 expulsions, so they did their best to pitch clear these elves. Unfortunately, it was not enough for them. The 9 knockouts all returned to the pitch, essentially meaning that there's just one player removed for them the whole game that mattered. And on top of that, there was some Agi 6 play being done by Please Don't Murder Me, so exciting game if you want to check out the High Elves doing High Elf things. Back to day 6. Not FDA approved won 3-2 over Cenobite the Curb. So these are a couple high action games from the High Elves. And lots of points in order to secure their victories. A death on both sides of the pitch, however. Not FDA approved has been winning consistently, but also losing players at a rapid pace. And if the bleeding doesn't stop soon, I certainly think the High Elves could find themselves in a really tough spot. Because they're definitely losing more SPP than they are gaining it, and that can really be a problem. Only 28 blocks delivered, but for a High Elf team with a Strength 5 piece, they don't need to deliver a lot of blocks. They just need to make sure the ones they do deliver count, and with 3 injuries and 1 kill, I'd say that happened. 49 blocks for the Chaos, so they did their best. They did get a sizable amount of removals, actually, which I'm sure is how they were able to get the 2 scores that they did get. Scholarly Gentleman drew 0-0 against Havoc's Big Green Weenies. 22 armor breaks for the super bashy Orc team. Just counted, and they are up to 8 Mighty Blow now. 8 Mighty Blow. And they're starting to fill in with guard, too. I think they have 5 or 6 guard pieces. So, 22 armor breaks there against a Chaos team is not surprising when you consider how much Mighty Blow they actually have. Decent amount of removals there. Just unfortunate that they weren't able to score, even though they had decent ball possession and successful passing. Obviously, dice were probably a factor in that, but even that, I mean, they're not rolling a ton of dice. It looks like GFIs were there. Probably needed to roll more of them, I would say. Just not something that you'll usually get for advice. Let's see, pickup rolls were all on point. Yeah, so it just looks like positioning and moving the ball were probably a struggle there. 50-50 on the catch, so you try to make one pass play late in the game, but I think you could have been a little bit more aggressive with your dice rolls, which is usually the opposite problem that other people have. Moving on to 3 Mountains, losing 0-1 against the Necromantic Newbies. Yoichi and his Necro team coming back in the position. This is a kind of a big match. We actually did talk about this one as a potential exciting match last week, and I gotta say, surprised by the result, but at the same time, both these teams are probably similar caliber. 2 expulsions, star player obviously, eating that MVP as well. That's what you get. I think Sabulu has been playing with star players just about every single game, so having them eat those MVPs from you is what you pretty much deserve. Yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm impressed with getting outblocked, but being able to outplay, doing necro things. The Secret of My Success played Dimension C137, and the Undead team took that one. Curious how the blocks looked. Ooh, actually pretty one-sided in favor of the Undead team. Quite a bit of removals as well that stuck around, and considering that this Undead team has a bench and the Orcs don't have a deep bench, that does not surprise me then that the removals were pretty serious. And the Orcs suffered a death too. Lebowski Urban Achievers won 2-1 over the Rebel Rousers. Rebel Rousers still having a rough season. Only 3 armor breaks in the match. It's hard to get SPP when you're only getting 1 touchdown and 1 injury inflicted. But let's see, what else did they get? Passes? A couple passes probably? Yeah, 2 passes. There we go. That's one way to generate SPP if you're slowing down. The other thing is just getting really good at inducements. I think that humans can have some really good inducements, but they have to get the right triggers for that. This Chaos team is starting to get up there in TV, so I'm not sure what you went with, but that might be something that you try and focus on getting better at, or making more strategic choices around that. It's not always best to go with the wizard, for example. Sometimes star player can really make a big difference. As far as the Lebowski Urban Achievers, plenty of growth there. Let's see how they do going forward. And Lords of Decay got their win, 2-1 over Skinky Island Boys. Kalisti Maya is now really on a tear. I think this is back-to-back wins. Let me just double-check that while I say that. Yep, over Lebowski Urban Achievers and over Skinky Island Boys. So those are 2 high opponents on the leaderboard. Very skilled coaches that Kalisti Maya has been able to get back-to-back wins with. That's good. That's the way to turn the season around. Giving up 70 blocks. Whoa. I'm surprised you have a team left after that. 70 blocks against Skaven is pretty rough. The injuries, it looks like, were pretty generous, but I guess he got away with marking all the Saurus. But not too much to pay for it. So when you can get away with that, that's good. That's good. Let's see what the Blodge... Ooh, Blodge Agi up. I like this thrower. A little bloaty, but I mean, at the same time, it's an extra, a little bit slower, but sure hands gutter runner. So that's a nice piece, actually. That's worth protecting. We're going to take a little bit of a deeper look at this team this week too, so that's actually a good transition point. But before we go to their team, let's look at the leaderboard. We do have 2 of the hugest games of this week already played. First of all, 2 top titans in the division clashed. Not FDA approved, Howl at the Moon, and the Necro came out on top. We're not going to cover this game in detail until next week, but because we're looking at the leaderboard, that's a really big one. And this is the other one, Dimension C137 winning over Lebowski Urban Achievers. So even though we're kind of looking into the future here, the top 3 teams have all played, and we have a new leader, Tommy Too Tall, undefeated, 5-2-0. 1 point behind him, not FDA approved, at 5-1-1. And 1 point behind him is Rumblebee. So, as things stand, they are starting to break away from the rest of the pack. With Necromantic Newbies beating the 3 Mountains up the week prior, or the week that we just looked at. Lebowski Urban Achievers losing back-to-back. Now to the Undead and to the Skaven. Skinky Island Boys just now losing to the Skaven. Kalisti Maya moving up the leaderboard and catching up to these guys. But unless I would say one of these teams with 3 wins starts to catch up on the top 3, and the top 3 start losing to teams that are lower on the board, this might be the turning point halfway through the season where we start to solidify the playoff seeds. So the 2 teams that we're going to review today, the first one is Kalisti Maya's Lords of Decay. Kalisti Maya's a Skaven coach. He also plays elves. He likes his pro elves. I know him from the North American tabletop. Nats, basically, is what I know it as. I don't know the full acronym. But I know him from another league. That's what I mean to say. And I know he plays a lot of Skaven. This team has seen a lot of development. The one that is often the most criticized, and we started the season off talking about it, was the Agi 4 Blodge Storm Vermin. Not really doing the Storm Vermin job, but doing jobs nonetheless. He does soak up hits, so that is, I guess, technically one of the Storm Vermin roles. I would like this piece a lot more if it has guard and stand firm afterwards, since you've got your 1 killer. But then you're also going to be missing out on tackle, which is one of the key components to that piece there. So if he finds another piece to get tackle on, then maybe this guy has a home. But truthfully, for 180k, I think he's a little bloaty. The other Storm Vermin needs tackle as well, so just an overall lack of tackle on this team. As long as he's not playing elves, though, since there is quite a bashy slant to this division, he'll get away with that. But I believe he's lost all his elf matches already, so maybe he just doesn't need tackle for this season. But something to think about going forward. Otherwise, though, he's always had a deep, deep bench on this team, and he uses it quite well. He also keeps a bank. That keeps his TV up. As far as the distribution of TV, other than the Storm Vermin, I think it's pretty well divvied out. He's got a clear Ball Sacker and Slinky Shadow Storm, and actually I really like this piece with the two heads. Being able to dive into the cage there. And then he's also got a Leap Gutter Runner with Big Hand. That's going to be your ball recovery. I don't know if this one's Fend is probably what I would have done in this case. I think Fend is great for a later skill, but this seems really early on unless you're just purposely trying to get punched in the face with this Gutter Runner. Using him for cage corners and the such, but my preference would be to get Fend a little later on and maybe have gotten something like Tackle, or trying to make a second threat for the Blitz. He does have a kicker as well, Strength 2. I would fire him even though he is your only kicker, even though he's one SPP away. Strength 2 piece is an unnecessary liability for your lineman here. Even though he's just going to get punched in the face over and over again, I think that it's probably worth letting him go. You've got one that's just one SPP away, so an easy replacement in my opinion. And then the last that we just talked about was the thrower. I really like this piece a lot now that he's got the Agi up. Even before the Agi up, I think the thrower has a place on the team, and with it being Blodge, that's pretty reliable. Getting the Agi up now, you can almost play the elf ball of running up the pitch, and you've got, you know, a true thrower here. You maybe take accurate next. Yeah, I really like that piece. His team is actually developing quite nicely. I think the one piece that I haven't mentioned, which is probably the most important piece, is going to be Quick Sticks Nightclaw, the potential one-turn threat. If he really does go sprint and sure feet next and then sidestep, that could be a game-changing piece that keeps on the sidelines. I don't know if he's doing that right now, but I know if I was playing against this team, I would be targeting this piece before all others. The one-turn threat is seriously something that other teams need to worry about, especially before it gets too developed. And it doesn't look like he's really feeding him touchdowns either. Really, it looks like he's been feeding his touchdowns to the leap piece, so... Yeah, I'm surprised that he's not going after that one-turn threat more. Overall record on the team is 10-4-8. And I know this season got off to a rough start, but he did pretty well in the first season. I know he played in the Devastational as well. Getting Snov guarded. Unaccompanied Minnows. He won that one. Wonder if that was in the Devastational or not. Anyhow. 3 rerolls, 1 nap. Alright, he's got his Apo, 7 fan factor. He's got the coach assistant, but not the cheerleader. Usually if you see one, you see both. I'm not a fan of it, but something you can do. Either way, that is Kaliste Maya's Lords of Decay, the Skaven team. One of the few up-and-coming Skaven teams. I think there is kind of a bit of a gap of Skaven for how good they are. So I'm curious to see if we get more Skaven coaches next season, but I absolutely assume Kaliste Maya will be around with the same team, especially with all the stat ups he's got. So the other team that we're going to cover is the new leaders of the division, Dimension C137, coached by Tommy Tutal. This team is nasty. They got a lot of buys the first season, and I know they weren't actually thrilled about that, but the buys allowed them a ton of development and on all the right pieces. I think they got 3 bye weeks back to back, and they fired pretty much all the linemen except for 2, and those 2 linemen got a ton of MVPs anyway, and so they've all been cycled off the team. And then the other interesting thing that this coach did was he picked up 2 players from the market. And they're actually back-to-back here, so we'll start with those pieces. Paleface, I don't know which team these teams were from, and if you know, let me know. I'm curious. But Paleface was a guard tackle skeleton that I think in my video said no one should buy. Tommy Too Tall didn't agree with me, and he bought him and immediately got block on him, and then it became a really good piece, just with a little bit of attention and SPP. I absolutely now see the value in this piece, and I like that he's got it. Having guard on something other than a white and a mummy is always good, and having the guard that he does on these ghouls, it's still good to have guard on a piece that you don't care about. If he's really putting these guard ghouls in tackle zones that can get punched back, that's pretty risky. Whereas using the skeleton in the same spot with that 5 movement can actually be very beneficial. So I like this piece more now. Gone with the sins. What's not to love? It's blodge, it's sidestep, it's got agi 4, and it's got 7 movement. That is a really good piece. That's kind of like the thrower on Khaleesi Maya's team, only instead of being a thrower, it's got guard, which is very useful, and it's just 1 touchdown away now from reaching level 6. For the next skill in that, I don't know if he's going to go sure hands or fend, but either one of those is good. I would even argue that tackle would be good here, even though he's got plenty of tackle. Doesn't hurt to have it on a movement 7 piece ever. The other ghouls, we'll transition over to those. The other blodge ghoul with guard and sidestep, that's nice. Again, whichever one of these gets sidestep, the other one probably gets fend or tackle. I think that all lines up pretty nicely. He did lose a ghoul, and this ghoul originally was kind of on a weird path with catch and I think diving catch or sprint. He's trying to build it into like a natural one-turner, or as close, not a natural, just a one-turn threat. And that one died to, I believe, the High Elves. So that was kind of probably a good thing for him. It was getting a little bloaty. And hasn't put any SPP on it yet, so I'm wondering if that was a recent buy. But yeah, just getting blodge on a ghoul is a good start, and that makes him a little bit more protected. The whites, Scary Terry lives up to his name, claiming many lives. How many Kaz has he inflicted already? I guess we can look at the stats. Yeah, 23 casualties inflicted, 2 touchdowns scored, and only 1 MVP in 25 matches. So he's almost averaging a casualty a match. That's pretty impressive, especially when you can add in the KOs as well. This guy is putting in plenty of work with the Mighty Blow piling on and now Pro. Closing in on 76. I have no doubt that he will get that by the end of the season. Curious to see what he goes at that point. You know, sometimes you'll see Dauntless, you'll see Juggernaut, even Frenzy. Of all 3 of them, I would probably take Juggernaut. Unless you go with like a Frenzy, Juggernaut, Ghoul. But I think probably Dauntless is good too for those strength 4 pieces or above. I'd still go Juggernaut personally. Wrestle is so annoying when you've got a killer like this. But the mummies are of course stars on this team as well. You've got a strength 6 mummy with break tackle. That is a cage diving threat if you can ever get close enough to the cage. I don't know if he's ever used it yet, but if you do use it, let me know. I'd love to get a 6 strength cage dive recorded. And then the other mummy, Rick and Morty, of course, being the team theme here. Rick with blodge guard. I can assume that Stand Firm's probably coming next. Absolutely love the 2 mummies. They work together well. And I guess I didn't mention the Wrestle Strip Ball ghoul. I like that ghoul as well. Probably going tackle next or Dauntless. Definitely like that piece though. It's a good deep threat in case somebody tries, like an orc team tries to do a pass play or a handoff play for a fast score. You can just run over there and strip the ball free. And last thing is a dirty player and a bench. But otherwise, I mean, really well developed team. Only 2 losses in the whole career. 6 draws, 17 wins. Gotta love that. No losses this season. I know they lost to, what was it, Wave Sneaky Island Boys at the very start of their Oh, okay. So they lost in the spins originally. So they lost the spin game and they lost one game last season. And other than that, they're pretty much undefeated. So that tells you this is a good team with a good coach, and definitely one to look out for. And I would say at this point, it's a safe bet for me to predict that they are going to the playoffs. But I'm going to stick to that. I bet against them last season. I bet on Wave. So I guess at this point, Wave's not out of it, but he's going to have a tough road ahead of him. I'm going to go ahead and give that spot over to him. And then looking at the matches for this week that have not been played that I want to check out. The two matches I'm thinking are going to be very interesting are going to be Three Mountains versus Big Green Weenies. A ton of Mighty Blow actually on both sides here, even though they're both AV9 teams. So this is the kind of game that could go very boring, where nobody gets armor breaks, or it could be the kind of game where one team just landslides over the other. I think Havoc's due for a win here, and I think that Casabulu's AV9 is kind of similar to my AV9, where once it gets a little cracked, everything falls apart. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Orcs for the upset in this match. The other match I'm looking at is Please Don't Murder Me versus Skinky Island Boys. I feel like Skinky Island Boys have been slipping the last 2 weeks, and Please Don't Murder Me are on the rise. And I am looking for Skinky Island Boys to get back on track with the win here against the High Elf team. Agi 6 is nice, but I don't think he has all the tools he needs to deal with this Lizard team. I think they're going to be able to kind of keep up with the movement, and Skinks are pretty actually effective against Elves as long as they're not just dodging all over the place. But yeah, that's my prediction there. So that will do it for Division 3. Let's go ahead and move on to Division 2. And week 6 action begins with Oil Miners losing to Radzoftia and Golgoth's team. 20 armor breaks for Golgoth, and he actually inflicted 2 deaths on the Skaven team. Skaven team tried to punch back, but only got 4 armor breaks out of 21 blocks. 33 blocks succeeded, resulting in those 20 armor breaks, so they're putting in the boot as well as getting those blocks. But all in all, I'd say pretty good removals from the Oil Miners. And they controlled the ball for most of the game, so I'm guessing Golgothan just did his one-turn BS. But actually, I did catch the end of this game, actually, now that I mentioned it. There was some red dice, and I want to say there was a crazy 5+ pickup. That was what secured the win for Golgoth. Otherwise, it would have been a draw or possibly a dwarf win, because the dwarves had the ball position in the Skaven side of the pitch when the 5+ play happened. So congrats to Golgoth on having his good dice with him and his natural one-turner. You lucky SOB. Typos happened, played Trikundo. King Grad and his orcs took on the Wood Elves, rather. And there was a big death in this game. War Dancer, was it level 5? Level 6? I want to say. It had gotten to the point where it had fend. Well, let's put it that way. It died to a foul on turn 8, which stopped the score. That would have been a winning score for the orc team. So, from my perspective, you know, I already played Zork, so it didn't really affect me much. But I guess good job getting the kill on the War Dancer. That's something that everybody can appreciate and love. At the expense of your win. It's kind of, you know, that's one of those decisions that happens halfway through the season when you're not in contention for playoffs. Although I would argue that Kakengrad was probably just on the cusp of playoffs, but so I think it might have been a little preemptive for him to kind of give up the win for that. But at the same time, kind of his call to make, and there are plenty of coaches out there that do not want to go to playoffs. So if you'd rather kill a War Dancer than go to playoffs, I am not going to fault you for that. Iron Master played Fruity Kisses, and of course Ladeus' team was pretty beat up from the prior week. And Iron Man went to town, 21 armor breaks, 2 expulsions. No breaks were given by Iron Master, of course, and resulting 9 knockouts and 3 injuries. I'd say he got off light, but I want to say at least one of those was a permanent injury, so not all is good in Fruity Kiss land. Ace Trucking Company played Steve and lost 1-2. And this one was a tough one for Quicks as well. The 3 injuries inflicted here were all on the Chaos Dwarf blockers, and all of them will be missing next game. So that's right, only 3 Chaos Dwarf blockers for the match against Gengar next week. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of the surviving Chaos Dwarf team as they go into their trying and tough times. Brazzers, I played Leafy Mustard, and Razoot, the bastard, scummed a wizard. And the wizard did stuff. I think it was turn 2. The wizard knocked out my ball carrier, Riley Reed, a very, very expensive piece, who then spent pretty much the rest of the game on the sideline, knocked out. Did not want to come back. And even though I got plenty of removals, 4 injuries inflicted on 47 blocks with 5 KOs, didn't matter. I think I had a chance to tie, but the dice just didn't come through in there at the end. More importantly for me, though, I suffered a death of a Blackwork and a strength bust on a lineman. So those 2 permanent injuries are making me very, very miserable, sad, and salty. Well, thanks for that, Grazoot. Not an Anime Sports Team played Mainland Rotters. This was the match that I talked about. I basically said if Wedge was going to have any attempt at redeeming himself this season with his crazy good team, this is the game to take a stand, and he did so, delivering great fashion. 8 removals, 2 of which were injuries on 34 blocks, but I want to say Tentacles was a thing. More than half of the tentacle rolls failed for non-anime sports team. That's all you need to see. Also, failing dodges is good too. But yeah, doing stuff. Val appearance, even making an appearance. Good job, Wedge. You needed that one. Keep it up. Just not against me. We just haven't played yet. But keep it taking on these elves. And the last match was Snovgard versus Live Tree or Die Hard. Doesn't matter how much Raj and Blodge you have and how little tackle Iron Master has. He's gonna roll POWs. You should know it by now. 31 succeeded blocks, which resulted in 5 knockouts and 1 injury. And 0 removals for the Wood Elves, even though they did throw 23 blocks. I'd say that's actually pretty low results, but those things happen. Regardless, got a touchdown apiece. Good stuff. As always, we gotta do the interception check. No interceptions. Okay, that's those can happen. Well, for Snovgard is the reason I check. I think he's got several over his career. So that covers it for this week. Only 1 match has been played so far, so the leaderboard's going to be pretty close to accurate here. Duberman in the top seed with 4 wins, the only team with 4 wins thus far. A number of teams now with 3 wins. You've got Not an Anime Sports Team. You've got Rats Off to You, Steve, and Iron Madden. This is the big surprise, getting back-to-back wins, even though he started out really, really rough with, I want to say it was at 3 losses in a row, to now 3 wins in a row. He's really surging. Fact check that right here. Iron Madden. We had 1 win, so it was 2. Which week did he win? Yeah, so week 2 he won over the Dwarves. So he was 1-0-2, and then he went 2-0-1, and now he is. Although 50-50 is top 5, so that just goes to show you how close this division is with so many draws and close matches. Behind them, the 2-win teams are Treakundo, Leafy Mustard, Oil Miners, Typos Happen, Mainland Rotters, and then the teams that just tie, Fruity Kisses and myself, and Quicks and Snovgard bringing up the rear. That said, there's only 1 point difference between these 4 teams. Throw in another point for... Actually, all of these teams are just 1 point apart. Yeah, so that's all pretty close. And then, because these teams just lost, so... Yeah, it's all pretty close. I mean, I don't think at this point, I don't think any team has been eliminated except for maybe Snovgard, since they're sitting at 1 win with just 3 points total. But it's going to take a lot for any team in this section, Ladeus or myself or Quicks. It's going to take a really, really hot streak and a bunch of favorable results up at the top for us to make a run at it. The rest of these teams, though, are still definitely in contention, especially with Arch and his loss to the Mainland Rotters, who are much lower on the list there. So that really does open things up. And Duberman tying against the last place team as well. Also an interesting result. Very exciting times. So let us move on to the Division 2 team that we're going to review. First is the Oil Miners. Dwarf coach, Pig Sofa. Last season, fun fact, he led the entire REBBL in kills. And when you look at this team, it's not hard to see why. First off, we've got a strength up, agi down, piling on, mighty blow, tackle, Troll Slayer, who does plenty of work. Just for funsies, yeah, 7 inflicted kills. This guy gets stuff done. Milan Luich Troll. Somebody that you really, really want to pay attention to if you're playing this team. The other Troll Slayer, he's new. He's not important. He doesn't matter. This Troll Slayer really matters. Nagi's Bust is not going to keep him down. Just one of the many stat ups on this team. When you look at the runners, each of them get their mandatory stat up. You've got the agi up leader piece, who essentially at this point could either be a receiver or a true thrower, depending on what he wants to do, if he wants to go pass next. But I like the options that he has in front of him. The other one is a strength up, and this is more of a ball hawk with strip ball and tackle. I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets wrestle next, even though it has block. The potential there is pretty good, unless he rolls doubles, and then he's going to get dodge. But I would, like I said, I would not hate getting a wrestle as a last skill there. Kickoff return would also be a good choice on this one. Moving on to the blitzers. Well, guess what? There's only one. The other one's dead. This one's strength up, though. Doesn't matter. With guard, strength up. Again, that's 3 strength ups on this team. Pretty impressive. The rest of the Longbeards have guard for the most part, except for sidestep 1, which is a little bit odd, seeing as he's got strength access, and you generally like having stand firm on dwarves. But I guess it could help in a pinch in a couple weird situations, if you're setting up on the sideline, for example. And then a diving tackle Longbeard, which I actually really like. I like the synergy of the tackle Longbeards with diving tackle that you can kind of put on the ball and get stand firm later on. More so than even dodge, especially since this piece has mighty blow. You're fine with it marking something. Whereas if it was a guard one, dodge might make a little bit more sense. So I like that choice there. The real choice that matters, though, and an interesting one, is the Zamboni, the Death Roller. I've talked to a lot of dwarf coaches about it. I've even played a Death Roller team at one point in the Nats League. And while I like it for certain matchups and certain circumstances, at this point, with the amount of strength ups that you have on this team, this is the unnecessary bloat that I think you need to get rid of. You're at 1820 TV right now, and you're still missing a blitzer. This is not getting you a whole bunch that you can't have with the rest of these other pieces, and I think it might be a bit of a crutch that also kind of puts you in a rough spot. Are you running the Bribe Stadium? You are running the Bribe Stadium, so that's at least something that can help with that, but I don't know. It's risky. It's bloaty. Frankly, I don't like it, but you are starting to get some better results this season. I know the jump up was originally rough, losing to Iron Madden, Mainland Rotters. You did get a good win over Steve. That was good. And then a big win over Leafy Mustard. So you're right in the middle of the pack at this point, but I would consider, as especially you're playing some of the bigger TV teams like Mainland Rotters, which you haven't played yet, have you? Oh, we did. It was a 1-1 draw. Got away with that one. Yeah, I would still just consider getting rid of that. And that's not just because we haven't played yet. I played against who was at Owen's dwarf team last season, and he had the death roller, and my game against him is pretty much what convinced him to fire it, because it did piss all. The next team that we're going to take a look at is Typos Happen, who is also on this page. It's great, coached by Kakengrad, who I will be playing this week. Typos Happen, the other orc team, as I like to call them. They have a shortage of guard, which they made up for with blodge, a lot of blodge. We did not talk about them last week. We talked about, did we talk about them last week? Yeah, I don't even know. I don't think so. Well, if we did, you get double coverage. Either way, a lot of blodge. I love dinner specials. Blodge, diving tackle. Obviously getting tackle next. The true Wolf Rider build, as it is known. But this is great against human teams, any like lizard team, any kind of Agi 3 dodge piece, ghouls in particular. Against elves, it's not as good. Elves and gutter runners will tend to just make the dodge out, ignoring the diving tackle in the first place, but it can also catch them by surprise, or if they forget about it, you know, it's just something that can win you games in certain circumstances, or just be such a nuisance that it creates really tough choices for the opponent, and that's why I like it so much. Black Orc development all looks good. You've got one that's kind of lagging behind, and that's the story of every Black Orc's life. He's only one touchdown away, though, so if you get a high kick, I would certainly throw him out there to try and catch it and bring it down the pitch if you can. Blodge, I don't like before you get guard and mighty blow, and especially since you've got so much other dodge on the team, it really slows down your development of your Black Orc, and it also really doesn't really fit with what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be supporting the rest of the team, not so much taking hits. Blitzer development, other than the Wolf Rider, you've got your standard guard mighty blow tackle. That's as blitzer as can be. Doesn't matter which team it is. If you've got strength access and general access, block guard, mighty blow tackle, that's your bread and butter. You've got a killer who's mighty blow tackle piling on, gets the strength up, but also the agi bust. So this is a piece that could potentially be marked and just left alone. If you've got like a zombie, for example, you just throw a zombie on this guy and he's not able to do much. At the same time, with strength up, very, very powerful piece. But if you put him on the ground, he's probably going to get a boot to the face. Just saying. Your worth it is going to be missing next game. Like a movement bust. Ouch. That's huge, actually. Movement bust on your blodge, strength up, sure hands piece. Now he's just a orc thrower, and I can tell you that 5 movement really does get to be a pain in the butt. I don't know if you fire him, though, because of the strength up. That's rough. That's really rough. I think you can't afford to fire him, but it is going to have a direct impact on your scoring threat. And I think you need to take an agi up on one of these other ones if you can get it, which is not ideal, but I think that's kind of the position you're forced in. You need some kind of secondary scoring threat, since this guy's movement is so hampered. Finally, looking at the lineman, he's got the dirty player lineman. Of course, I love that. He's got the guard block lineman. I love that too. It's kind of an extra blitzer. You don't put him on the line. He doesn't have a troll. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that comes down to personal preference, and I think a lot of people think that it's better to not have a troll. However, you are sitting at, with that on there, around, what, 1800, 1900 TV, thereabouts. So that is territory where the troll can make sense against those claw, mighty blow, piling on teams. We only have one real claw palm team in the mainland Rotters in our division, so I think you'll get away with it, but might consider it in the future. Statistically speaking, this team does pretty well. 12-5-8. They were in the division I covered last season. They did pretty well, actually. I want to say they were top 4. And a very contested team with good coaches, so I think he did pretty well. I did hear him say on his stream a couple weeks ago that he's thinking about re-rolling this team. So if you do that, let me know. But I look forward to playing you this week. And that is going to do it for the teams that we're covering for Div 2. Take a quick peek at the schedule for this week, see what notable matches are out there. Again, I'm going to keep following Malin Rodders here. I'm going to see them take on Steve. Steve has been hot and cold. He's won some matches against good coaches. He's lost some matches against not so good coaches, or at least as far as the leaderboard's concerned, I should say. He's lost to some of the teams that are lower on the leaderboard. So I would like to see where Malin Rodders goes. I think now that they got their first big win against not an anime sports team, I would like to see Malin Rodders try and do the same thing to a higher placed Necro team. See what he can come up with there. Keep his streak going. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Malin Rodders to win that one, but if you let me down, Wedge, shame on you. And Rats Off to You versus not an anime sports team is going to be the other side of the coin, the Agi side of the coin. Rats Off to You really has struggled so far against the agility teams and had a field day with all the bash teams. So I'm curious to see how Arch XL is able to keep up with the Rats and punch his way through them, hopefully. Or they'll just end in a draw, and that's good for me too. Either way. I mean, they're so close to each other, I guess. If anything other than a draw is going to make it harder for me to get to playoffs. So I'm just more or less interested to see who wins this one for bragging rights purposes. I personally am probably going to favor Arch in this match, but the natural one-turner from Golgoth can pretty much keep up with every score that Arch can do. So I almost feel like the attrition game has got to happen as well for the High Elves. It'll be close. It'll be close. It'll be exciting. It's the opposite of all the other bash matches that I usually pick. So it'll definitely be one to watch on Golgoth's stream. That will do it for Division 2. Let's go ahead and move on to Division 1. And the Necronomics came alive in a 3-0 or 3-1 win over Tadpoles in the Big City. This was actually an upset, if you can call it that, from the defending champion. He had a rough start to his season. Tadpoles in the Big City were on a tear. Their casualty dice are just super, super hot right now. And in fact, they still got 5 injuries in this game, but managed to lose, even with those injuries inflicted. Regen, of course, being a very powerful thing. So the Necronomics, now with that big win, sends a message to the rest of the division that they are still alive, still kicking, and looking to defend their championship in the playoffs. New Year's Norse, on the other hand, lost 2-5 to Pastry Pest. So basically, if there's a message for this week, it's that you cannot count out the champions. There's a reason why they are champions. A 5-2 win pretty much says, hey, I got this. And that's a pretty clear message to the Norse, who also suffered a death. You can block me and bash me, but you're going to pay for it with touchdowns. So I like seeing a 5-2 win. That's about as one-sided as I think we've seen all season in Division 1. But again, 2 veteran coaches beating up and really outscoring the new Division 1 rookies. Cheese Tactics takes a 3-2 win over Men in Tights. How do you score 3 times on Orcs against Wood Elves, you might ask? Shenanigans. Goblin shenanigans. As Cheese was on last week to talk about his Goblin. It did some stuff again. So yeah, good job, Goblin. Keep it up. Gloom and Zoom played the USS Sulaco in the last match of the week, which just happened tonight. And guess what? I think Mike just has a new hatred for Necro. At least in Division 1 Necro, where you've either got 4 strength on everything or a palming werewolf. But either way, Claw Mighty Blow. Surprise, surprise, it does good things against lizards. Who'd have thought? 17 armor breaks here, 2 touchdowns. Really, the removals, of course, tell the story. 6 knockouts, 4 injuries, and removals off 39 blocks. Sorry, but there's just not much you can do against that. Eat Man Things took on New Day Co-op. Got a 2-2 draw. Ninja Pirate Assassin back in the league, taking on some of the harder hitting teams. And this one was interesting. I didn't actually watch all of it, but only 8 blocks delivered by Ninja Pirate Assassin, and yet he still gets the draw. Why? Because one-turners are a thing. Gotta love your one-turn threats. Ooze Cruise played Animal Farm, and the Dwarves got pounded on pretty hard by Sace. 14 armor breaks to 13. Only 1 injury and 2 knockouts for Animal Farm, even though they got the win. So actually, I take that back. Retraction. Animal Farm got pounded on by the Dwarves, but it didn't matter. They still won. Good job at the pass. I gotta watch that game. I have no idea how that happened. Can't watch it. I'm gonna have to look and see if somebody streamed that. Huh. I'm very curious to see how this game happened. Either way, I am guessing that this MVP was probably earned for something real, like Wrestle Tackle doing a thing. But I'm stumped by that one. I'm definitely going to have to go back and look. And Saskatoon Shiners played the Knights Who Say Knee in a 1-1 draw. Knights Who Say Knee really must have had to cling in there. And 21 armor breaks. I'd say Mid-Stays' dice were due for that one. 7 KOs and 3 injuries versus 2 KOs, 2 injuries. But out-blocking the rats that like to block. That in itself is an accomplishment for Mid-Stays. And we're going to take a look at his team a little bit later today, but before we do any team reviews, let's go ahead and look at the leaderboard and see where everything stands as of this moment. Before they've even played a single game. Is that correct? No, they played 1 game. And that 1 game was a win for Sace, so that moves him up on the leaderboard, at least temporarily, to the top 2. Fiction holds the top spot right now with Gloom and Zoom, 4-2-0. Great start to his season. Strength 4 Werewolves. They're really good, especially when you have 2 of them. New Day Co-op, 3-3-0. Again, there's 2 teams now that are undefeated in this division, so at some point these teams are going to have to play. I don't think they've played yet, but that'll be a good one. Definitely one to watch. Not happening this week, is it? Gloom and Zoom. Nope, not this week, at least. 130 takes a hit after that loss to Horny Cricket, but basically these teams here are tied, Kool-Aid and Tadpoles, at least until this next week. 4 wins, no draws, 2 losses versus 3 wins, 3 draws. And really, whatever happens this week for Fiction will kind of decide how he ranks up there against Sace 2. So still pretty close, I would say, for all of the division. And if you're at 2 wins or 1 win and 3 draws, you're still technically in it at this point for a playoff seed. Even Ninja Pirate Assassin could actually come back and find his way in there. So the 2 teams that we're going to cover, the first one is Necronomics. Horny Cricket, the returning champion. Take a look at this team and see how he made the championship and also the price he paid for it, because it was not a clean road there for him. He did suffer some losses, and was able to capitalize with the Chainsaw Star player to get that victory. One of the losses that he suffered was his Flesh Golem. However, that now has been replaced by Turnkenstein, the Flesh Golem, who actually got 3 touchdowns in the game against Eisenmike. So being able to rush that block onto him is going to ensure at least a little bit of survivability. The thing about werewolves in the REL is that they really sustain themselves by dead flesh golems. So the life expectancy of Turnkenstein is pretty low. The only one that does stand in opposition to that is Frank. Frank is so close to leveling up, just like the one on Yayo's team was, and then he died. So again, I would not offer life insurance to Frank or his family. It just doesn't end well for flesh golems. But as far as flesh golems go, without rolling any doubles, this is a pretty darn good one with block, guard, mighty blow, and grab. Grab, of course, to assist with the 1 turn. Also, it really is helpful for setting up mint fouls. And necro teams have to be good at fouling. I've got one dirty player here as well, but any of the zombies can do it. Block Fend. I think Bone the Second is probably getting near his termination, as he's only 5 SPP, 1 MVP away from a 3rd level, and unless it's guard, I really don't see him sticking around. Likewise, Bones is also 3 SPP away, kick and block, so probably nothing useful that you're going to put on him either, except for maybe guard. That would keep him around. Otherwise, I would expect him to get fired. The ghouls, unfortunately for Horny Cricket, are what he's lost this season. Grandpa Guile the Third was a very well-developed ghoul, and trying to remember what the other one's name was, but basically both these ghouls were pretty developed, and they've unfortunately paid the price for his team winning the championship. The star of the team, though, and the main reason why he's had so much success, other than just being a good coach in general, is the fact that he's got the Palm Tackle Jump Up Pro as of legend status, Werewolf Hate My Hair, who has quite the tally of casualties inflicted, 64 total. I don't know if that's the most in the league. I would have to look that up. 5 kills inflicted isn't bad either, but that does kind of go to show you you can make legend with the Claw Palm Werewolf and still have less kills than the Troll Slayer on Pig Sofa, who's only played for a season and a half. Go figure. Horny Soul, a Blodge Agi Up Werewolf, also a very useful piece. I'm curious to see where he goes next in the development. I don't know if he would go sure hands on this piece, or if he's going to probably do sidestep next, would be my next guess, since it is a frenzy piece. Also, tackle is a viable option. Not a whole bunch of tackle on this team. White development, he pretty much uses his whites to assist the werewolves. The werewolves do all the blitzing. Since you've got a palm one, why would you bother with a palm white? Makes sense to me. Claw's going to make all the difference there. I will say that even though this team is basically been beat up and through the gutter, it's so trim on TV and it's so efficient that he's going to be able to get wins against a lot of teams that are higher TV that may have a few more skills, but especially when you consider that he could drop both these and go down 80 TV to 1740. And I think maybe he might be waiting on this one to get kicked to fire this one, which I wouldn't hate. But yeah, he's a very, very trim team. Very clean. Everything's very efficient. I mean, you don't even need additional levels on Horny Soul. It's already doing its job very, very well. Hate My Hair is never going to get more expensive. He's at legend status, so... And you certainly get your use out of him. I'm sure he's blitzing with him every turn. If he's not blitzing with him, he's using Jump Up to get another block. So just an all-around awesome piece that you would never want to get rid of. And you'll always want to protect as well. So you might be able to take advantage of that playing against the werewolves. But I doubt it'll even let you. Overall statistics for the team, 35, 7, and 12. That is a phenomenal record, especially when you consider the caliber of coaches that Horny Cricket plays against day in and day out. Not a surprise that he is a champion coach. He's also done well in the champion ladder and just about everything I have seen him do. So if you want to get better at whatever team you want to play, look for Horny Cricket's replays. And if you're lucky enough to see him playing the team that you want to play, one worth watching. I think that is all I've got for this team. And the other one we're going to take a look at is the Knights Who Say Knee, coached by Mistakes. Knights Who Said Knee, I should say. Said Knee. They don't say it anymore. They used to say it. Knights Who Said Knee are a team that has pretty much always lived in Division 1. That's a testament to Mistay's skill as a coach, but also the fact that they can roll agility ups at will. Godfrey the Jackal. And I don't even know how many Godfreys and Godfrey, all, yeah. He cycled a lot of blitzers. Let's just put it that way. I started the season 2 seasons ago, and I think he had a couple strength up ones, a couple agi 5 ones. Yeah, he cycles his blitzers quite frequently, which makes sense considering how bashy Division 1 is, the reputation that it has, and the fact that he's been here the whole time. That's right. All these games have been played in Division 1. That's insane. And he still exists. And in fact, at this exact moment, he doesn't have a single loner. That's kind of impressive. The fact that he's been able to develop it up. Because he's got leader on Godfrey, he is at 2 team rerolls. It's especially efficient. I like that. I think it was because one of the other leader blitzers died. Able to roll doubles for Mighty Blow on those blitzers is huge. You'd always want to be blitzing with them, hence the name Blitzer. Even though you've got strength access on your blockers, it's just not very efficient to have a palm-up blocker, especially with wrestle. So I like that you went Mighty Blow instead of guard on these pieces. Sometimes you see a guard blitzer, and to me, it's just not the greatest use of that double. Dante the Daring, I should say. Speaking of not greatest uses of levels, an Agi 5 blocker feels pretty bad. But at the same time, it's an Agi 5 piece on a Brett team. So you can't really crap on it too much because he has his uses. He's still wrestle tackle. Technically, this is a cage dive threat when you think about it. So while it doesn't have agility access, it's not going to get dodge, it's not going to get leap. It is still something that has a unique purpose, and I know Mistays recognizes the impact that it can have. It also even has a scoring threat potential because it is Agi 5. It can catch and tackle zones. He's only scored 2 touchdowns with it. That does not surprise me. In fact, it's done more passes than touchdowns. So that kind of tells me that it's probably more of a ball recovery threat than it is a touchdown threat or a reception pass or a reception threat. So something to keep in mind if you're playing Mistays and you're in Division 1. Knowing how to treat the piece and how he uses it is important. Something else to think about is the dump off potential that he has. Nerves of Steel dump off on Godfrey. With it being Agi 4 and all the other blitzers having catch, there's some genuine synergy there. I'm sure he can throw off to the Agi 5 piece, or he can throw off to these ones with the natural reroll. Either way, if you do manage to get hit on the ball, you're probably not going to get the ball unless the dice go your way. Whether that's a bad catch and then a favorable scatter. I like dump off in this team in this sense. I don't think I've seen enough Brett teams use dump off. So all in all, I like it. Very strategic, and it plays out well in your favor. Last thing I'll touch on is the peasants. You've got one that's probably about to get fired and one that probably just got dirty player. So like them, love them. Like that you foul. That's good. You have a stadium. You do. You throw a rock and get the rest of events are canceled. This one surprises me for Mistays. I would actually think that you would want the Bribe Stadium as Bretonians. Seeing as you're going to be doing more fouling, and to cancel to get the ref event, I guess it's more of a protection of his own team than it is trying to inflict an advantage upon the enemy team. So it's an interesting pick for the stadium. I don't dislike that stadium. I think it makes a lot of sense for elf teams. And in some senses, this is like an elf team, the way that it's built. So I don't hate it, but I think it is interesting that you would cancel to get the ref when you've got a bunch of dirty players. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about this team. Stays is a great coach, playing a subpar team, getting consistent results. Like what I said week 1, or I guess preseason, I stand by that statement. Even though this is not his season, and I think he is 100% planning on re-rolling the team, he's put in an admirable amount of work. Admirable amount of work as the Bretonian coach, and he has certainly earned and entitled to re-roll to a better team. Good luck next season. And before next season, you're going to get the chance to play Kingmaker, and some of the matches that he plays are definitely going to have an impact. Looking at the upcoming matches for this week, which ones are interesting, which ones are going to be fun to watch. First off, the one for me, that's going to be, I think, the most interesting is the Booze Crews versus the Necronomics. This is a match that I actually predicted would be the semifinals of the playoffs. They were on the same side of the bracket, so they would have played each other before the grand finals, but I definitely thought that Booze Crews was going to go pretty far. I always thought Necronomics would go far as well, and they, of course, they went on to win it, but Booze Crews got knocked out early, and so that kind of predicted it, or really screwed up my bracket. I think this match will be really good. Booze Crews has the tools to shut down Necronomics, hands down. The amount of stand firm, the amount of mighty blow, tackle. It's really going to come down to the coaching of these two teams, and of course the dice. But the coaching of these two teams is what I'm most interested in. See which one comes out on top, in a match that I would say is pretty even. The other match I'm looking at is the Tadpoles in the Big City taking on the USS Sulaco. This is the Lizard Off. Generally, the Lizard Off is decided by who has the better source, and in this case, that would hands down be 130. However, Eisenmike is the coach that consistently does more with less skills. So I am curious to see how he could potentially outplay 130. Unless it's just Eisenmike getting bashed into the ground and all his source getting removed from the pitch. That's certainly a possibility with the amount of removals and how hot 130's dice has been. So if that happens, it's just a complete landslide. Then it's an uninteresting match. But if somehow Eisenmike does pull it off, it would potentially be a match of the season. So that is what I am looking for there. That is going to do it for this episode of Superfed TV presents REL Divisions 1, 2, and 3. If you have any questions or if you're interested in joining me for a cast, feel free to leave a note. I am certainly looking for casters for the rest of the season to kind of co-host and guest appear. And next week, we're going to be doing our mid-season review. So I am probably going to find a couple coaches to join me to talk about all the teams again. It'll be a little bit of a longer episode, I believe, and it's Thanksgiving, so hopefully it'll give you guys something to watch or think about or talk about, or I don't know. Basically, I'm getting at is we're all going to have a little bit extra time next week to think about Blood Bowl and how grateful we are for the league that we have, or something like that. Anyway, thanks again for watching. You guys have a good one. Good luck.